Hello, and welcome back to Speak English Daily.
Hi, everyone. We are very happy to see you here today.
Hi, Mike. It's nice to finally meet you in person. I have to say, this place was a wonderful choice. The atmosphere feels relaxed without being too quiet, and I love how comfortable everything looks. Sometimes a good environment makes a conversation flow much more naturally.
I'm glad you like it. I spent far more time choosing a location than I'd like to admit. I wanted somewhere that felt welcoming rather than overly formal. When people are comfortable, they tend to be themselves, and that usually leads to better conversations.
I completely agree. First impressions matter, but I think people often focus too much on appearance and not enough on how a situation feels. If someone can create a comfortable environment, it tells me a lot about their personality.
That's an interesting point. Most people think about what they should wear or what they should say. Not many think about how to make another person feel at ease. Has your day been good so far?
It has been surprisingly productive. I had a few meetings during the morning, spent some time working on a personal project in the afternoon, and then made sure I had enough time to get ready without rushing. I've learned that when I rush, I arrive feeling stressed, and that energy follows me into the conversation.
That sounds like a smart approach. My day was busy as well. I had several deadlines to finish, and for a while I wasn't sure I would leave work on time. Fortunately, everything worked out. Sitting here now feels like a nice change of pace.
Sometimes the busiest days make us appreciate simple moments more. There's something refreshing about putting work aside and having a meaningful conversation with another person. We spend so much time focusing on tasks that we forget how enjoyable genuine connection can be.
I couldn't agree more. Speaking of connection, I'm curious about your personal project. You mentioned it earlier, and now I'm wondering what kind of things interest you outside of work.
I enjoy several creative hobbies. Reading has always been one of my favorites because it allows me to learn from different perspectives. I also enjoy writing in a journal and occasionally taking long walks when I need time to think. They might sound simple, but those activities help me stay balanced.
Those actually sound very appealing. I think people underestimate simple hobbies. There's something valuable about activities that help you slow down and reflect. What kind of books do you usually enjoy reading?
I'm drawn to books about psychology, personal development, and biographies. I enjoy learning how different people think and how they overcome challenges. Every person has a unique story, and I find that fascinating. What about you? What do you enjoy when you have free time?
I'm a bit of a mix. I enjoy staying active, so I like hiking and going to the gym. At the same time, I enjoy documentaries and podcasts because I'm naturally curious. If I discover a topic that interests me, I can spend hours learning about it.
Curiosity is such an attractive quality. Conversations become much more interesting when someone genuinely wants to learn. I've noticed that the people I enjoy talking to most are usually the ones who ask thoughtful questions rather than trying to impress everyone around them.
That's a great observation. Sometimes people think a good conversation is about saying impressive things, but I think listening is equally important. You seem very comfortable talking with people. Have you always been that way?
Not at all. I was much quieter when I was younger. Over time, I realized that confidence doesn't come from trying to be perfect. It comes from accepting yourself and becoming comfortable with who you are. Once I understood that, conversations became much easier and more enjoyable.
I like that perspective. It's been really enjoyable getting to know you so far. You have a calm and thoughtful way of expressing yourself, and it makes the conversation feel effortless.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Since you asked whether I've always been comfortable talking with people, I think confidence is actually one of the most misunderstood qualities. Many people assume confidence means being the loudest person in the room or having everyone's attention. I see it very differently.
How would you define it?
For me, confidence is feeling secure enough that you don't need constant validation from others. It's the ability to walk into a room without wondering whether everyone likes you. It's knowing your value without needing to announce it. I think truly confident people are often much quieter than people expect.
That's interesting because social media often presents the opposite image. People tend to associate confidence with visibility.
That's true. There's nothing wrong with being visible or expressive, but confidence and attention-seeking are not the same thing. One comes from self-respect, while the other often comes from insecurity. A confident person can enjoy recognition, but they don't depend on it emotionally.
So what are some signs that someone is genuinely confident?
One sign is that they can listen without turning every conversation back to themselves. Another is that they don't feel threatened by other people's success. If someone else achieves something impressive, a confident person can celebrate it. They don't see life as a competition that must be won every day.
I like that perspective. It sounds very mature.
Maturity plays a huge role. As people gain life experience, they often realize that trying to impress everyone is exhausting. You eventually understand that not everyone will admire you, agree with you, or understand you. Once you accept that, you become much more relaxed.
Have you always thought that way?
Not at all. When I was younger, I worried far too much about what people thought of me. I would replay conversations in my head and wonder if I had said the wrong thing. Over time, I learned that most people are focused on their own lives. They're usually not analyzing our every word.
That's probably reassuring for many people to hear.
It certainly was reassuring for me. Another lesson I learned is that elegance isn't about creating a perfect image. It's about consistency between who you are and how you present yourself. When those two things match, people sense authenticity.
Authenticity seems rare these days.
Sometimes it does. People feel pressure to appear successful, interesting, or flawless. Yet the most memorable people I've met were never trying to create an image. They were comfortable being themselves. They had strengths, weaknesses, accomplishments, and mistakes, and they didn't hide any of it.
That sounds refreshing.
It is. Imagine meeting someone who constantly mentions their achievements. After a while, the conversation feels one-sided. Now, imagine meeting someone who is accomplished but only discusses those achievements when they're relevant. The second person often appears much more impressive because there's no need to prove anything.
That's a subtle but important difference.
Very much so. I think elegant communication involves restraint. You don't need to reveal everything immediately. You don't need to dominate every discussion. You allow conversations to develop naturally. There's a certain confidence in not rushing to showcase every accomplishment.
That's a valuable skill, especially in social situations.
Absolutely. People often remember how you made them feel more than the specific facts you shared. If someone leaves a conversation feeling heard, respected, and comfortable, you've created a much stronger impression than if you simply talked about yourself for an hour.
That's probably one reason our conversation has felt so natural. There's a balance to it.
I'm glad you feel that way. And for everyone listening, this is a great moment to reflect on your own communication style. Do you focus more on being interesting or on being interested? Let us know in the comments because it's a fascinating topic. And if you're enjoying this conversation and practicing your English with us, don't forget to like the episode and subscribe for more real-life English conversations.
That's a great question. I think many listeners will have different answers, and those discussions can be just as interesting as the conversation itself.
Definitely. Sometimes the best learning happens when people share perspectives and experiences. Confidence looks different from person to person, but self-respect, authenticity, and consideration for others seem to be qualities that consistently stand the test of time.
I couldn't agree more. The more we talk about it, the more I realize that genuine confidence has very little to do with attracting attention and much more to do with feeling comfortable in your own skin.
Feeling comfortable in your own skin changes the way you approach almost everything in life. It also changes the way you think about success. Speaking of that, I'm curious, Mike, when you imagine your future, what kind of life are you working toward?
That's a great question. A few years ago, I would have answered it very differently. Back then, my focus was almost entirely on career growth. I wanted promotions, bigger responsibilities, and the feeling that I was constantly moving forward. Those goals still matter to me, but now I think more about building a life that feels meaningful as a whole.
What caused that shift?
Experience, I think. I realized that achieving a goal feels exciting for a while, but then you quickly start thinking about the next one. I began asking myself whether I was enjoying the journey or simply chasing milestones. Since then, I've tried to focus on both achievement and quality of life.
I think that's a very important realization. Many people spend years pursuing goals without stopping to ask why those goals matter to them. Ambition is valuable, but direction matters just as much. Climbing a ladder isn't very rewarding if it's leaning against the wrong wall.
I like that analogy. So how do you define success?
My definition has evolved over time. When I was younger, success looked very external. I thought it was about accomplishments, recognition, and reaching certain milestones by certain ages. As I've grown older, I've become much more interested in internal success. By that, I mean having peace of mind, strong relationships, meaningful work, and the freedom to make choices that align with my values.
That's a much broader definition than most people use.
I think it has to be. Life is multidimensional. Imagine someone who has achieved incredible professional success, but is constantly stressed, disconnected from loved ones, and unable to enjoy their achievements. From the outside, they may appear successful. From the inside, the experience could be very different.
That's true. Sometimes people assume success automatically creates happiness.
And while success can certainly contribute to happiness, it doesn't guarantee fulfillment. Fulfillment comes from living in a way that feels authentic to who you are. Different people find fulfillment through different paths. Some find it through business, others through creativity, family, education, service, or personal growth.
Personal growth is something I think about a lot. I enjoy setting goals because they help me improve. At the same time, I don't want my entire identity to depend on achievement.
That's a healthy approach. I believe growth should enhance your life rather than consume it. There was a period when I felt pressure to be productive every moment of the day. If I wasn't accomplishing something, I felt guilty. Eventually, I realized that rest, reflection, and enjoyment are also valuable parts of a successful life.
That's something many people struggle with. There always seems to be another task, another project, or another goal waiting.
Absolutely. Modern culture often rewards constant activity, yet some of the most important insights come during quiet moments. A walk, a conversation, or an evening spent reflecting can teach you things that endless productivity never will.
How do you maintain balance between ambition and personal well-being?
I try to ask myself a simple question. Is my work supporting my life, or is my life supporting my work? Ideally, work should be an important part of life, not the entire foundation of it. I want to pursue excellence in what I do, but I also want time for relationships, learning, health, and experiences.
That sounds very intentional.
It has become more intentional over the years. I've learned that balance doesn't happen automatically. If you don't protect your priorities, other demands will happily take their place. That's why I regularly evaluate how I'm spending my time and energy.
Do your future goals still include professional ambitions?
Definitely. I enjoy growth and challenge. I want to continue developing new skills, taking on meaningful projects, and expanding my knowledge. But my goals are less focused on proving something to others and more focused on becoming the best version of myself. That's a subtle difference, yet it changes everything.
Because the motivation comes from within rather than from external approval.
Precisely. External approval is unpredictable. If your confidence depends on it, you'll feel constantly unstable. Internal standards provide a much stronger foundation. You can appreciate recognition when it comes, but you aren't dependent on it.
That's a powerful way to look at ambition. It transforms success from a competition into a personal journey.
I think that's one of the most rewarding perspectives a person can develop. When your goals align with your values, progress feels meaningful. You stop comparing your timeline to everyone else's and start focusing on creating a life that genuinely reflects who you are.
And when you do that, fulfillment becomes less about reaching a final destination and more about appreciating who you're becoming along the way.
I like that idea of appreciating who you're becoming. It encourages patience, and patience is something that seems increasingly rare these days. People want immediate results, immediate answers, and sometimes even immediate certainty about relationships.
Since we're talking about relationships, I'd like to ask about something that often generates strong opinions. I think modern dating has become more complicated because people have too many options. Dating apps, social media, and constant online interaction seem to make commitment more difficult. Do you agree with that?
I think there's some truth in that observation, but I wouldn't place all the responsibility on technology. Technology amplifies behavior, but it doesn't create human nature. People have always faced challenges when it comes to commitment, communication, and relationships.
That's fair. Still, I sometimes feel that having endless choices can make people less willing to invest in one person. If someone believes there's always another option waiting, they may be less motivated to work through normal challenges.
I understand that perspective. The abundance of choice can sometimes create unrealistic expectations. People may start looking for perfection rather than compatibility. However, I also think technology has helped many people meet partners they never would have encountered otherwise. Like most tools, it can be beneficial or harmful depending on how it's used.
So you don't think dating apps are the problem?
Not inherently. The issue is often mindset rather than platform. Someone who lacks sincerity can behave poorly online or offline. Likewise, someone who values honesty and respect can use technology responsibly. The medium matters less than the character of the person using it.
That's a balanced way of looking at it. Another topic that generates debate is social media itself. Some people believe it has improved communication, while others argue it's damaging relationships and self-esteem.
I think both viewpoints contain valid points. Social media allows people to stay connected, share experiences, and learn from others. At the same time, it can encourage comparison. When people constantly compare their lives to carefully curated highlights, dissatisfaction often follows.
That's one of my concerns. People see polished images and assume everyone else is happier, more successful, or living a better life.
Exactly. The problem isn't seeing someone else's success. The problem is forgetting that you're seeing a selected moment rather than a complete reality. Every person faces challenges, doubts, and setbacks. Social media rarely captures those moments.
Do you think social media influences dating expectations as well?
Absolutely. People are exposed to endless images of idealized relationships. Sometimes they begin expecting real relationships to feel effortless all the time. In reality, healthy relationships require communication, patience, compromise, and mutual understanding.
Here's a slightly controversial opinion. I think many people end relationships too quickly today. The moment they encounter a disagreement, they assume the relationship isn't right.
I partially agree with that. Some people may leave too quickly because they're uncomfortable with conflict. However, I also think previous generations sometimes stayed in unhealthy situations for too long. The ideal approach lies somewhere in the middle.
That's a good point. Not every relationship deserves endless chances.
Precisely. There's an important distinction between normal challenges and fundamental incompatibility. Healthy couples can disagree while maintaining respect. If respect disappears consistently, the issue becomes much more serious.
So disagreement itself isn't a bad sign.
Not at all. In fact, respectful disagreement can strengthen a relationship. It allows people to understand each other's values, perspectives, and communication styles. The key is how the disagreement is handled.
What do you think graceful disagreement looks like?
It begins with curiosity. Instead of immediately trying to prove you're right, you try to understand why the other person thinks differently. You ask questions. You listen carefully. You acknowledge valid points even when you don't fully agree.
That sounds simple, but many people struggle with it.
Because disagreement often becomes emotional. Once emotions take over, people stop listening and start defending. That's why emotional intelligence is so valuable. It helps you separate the issue from the person. You can disagree with an idea while still respecting the individual expressing it.
I think that's something society could benefit from more generally, not just in relationships.
I completely agree. Whether we're discussing dating, career choices, politics, or personal values, respectful dialogue creates opportunities for learning. Hostility usually closes those opportunities.
Listening to you explain it makes me realize that mature communication isn't about avoiding difficult topics, it's about approaching them with the right attitude.
That's a wonderful way to put it. Difficult conversations are unavoidable. What matters is whether we approach them with defensiveness or with understanding. When people choose understanding, even strong disagreements can become productive.
And when both people focus on understanding rather than winning, they often discover they have more common ground than they initially thought.
I think that's one of the most valuable lessons people can learn. When understanding becomes more important than winning, relationships tend to become much stronger. That actually leads perfectly into something I've been thinking about during our conversation. We've talked about confidence, ambition, communication, and relationships. When you consider everything together, what do you find genuinely attractive in a person?
The older I get, the more my answer changes. Years ago, I probably would have focused on appearance first. Appearance still matters to some extent because it's part of first impressions, but it no longer sits at the top of my list. What I find truly attractive now is character. I admire people who are kind, emotionally mature, and comfortable being themselves.
I think many people experience that shift as they gain life experience. Physical attraction may capture attention initially, but character determines whether admiration grows over time. Someone can be incredibly attractive on the surface, but if they treat others poorly or communicate disrespectfully, that attraction fades very quickly.
I've noticed that too. Sometimes a person's personality can make them seem far more attractive than they appeared at first. The opposite can happen as well.
Absolutely. Personality has a powerful influence on perception. One quality I admire tremendously is kindness. Not performative kindness that appears only when people are watching, but genuine kindness that comes naturally. The way someone treats waiters, coworkers, family members, and strangers reveals a great deal about their character.
That's something I pay attention to as well. People often reveal who they are through small interactions rather than grand gestures.
Exactly. Grand gestures can be impressive, but consistency is what matters most. A person who behaves thoughtfully every day demonstrates values that are much deeper than someone who occasionally does something dramatic to create an impression.
Another quality I admire is emotional intelligence. I don't think I appreciated its importance when I was younger.
Emotional intelligence becomes more valuable with every passing year. Life presents challenges, misunderstandings, disappointments, and stressful situations. A person's ability to navigate those experiences calmly and thoughtfully can make an enormous difference in a relationship.
How would you describe emotional intelligence in simple terms?
For me, it's the ability to understand your own emotions while also recognizing and respecting the emotions of others. It doesn't mean you're never upset or frustrated. It means you're aware of those feelings and capable of managing them constructively rather than allowing them to control your behavior.
That sounds closely connected to communication.
It absolutely is. Communication is one of the foundations of every healthy relationship. Many problems aren't caused by bad intentions. They're caused by misunderstandings, assumptions, and conversations that never happen. People often expect others to read their minds, which rarely works very well.
That's probably one of the most common relationship mistakes.
I would agree. Open communication creates clarity. It allows people to express needs, discuss concerns, and build trust. Trust itself is another quality I find deeply attractive. When someone is reliable and honest, it creates a sense of security that strengthens every aspect of a relationship.
Trust seems difficult to build but easy to lose.
Very true. That's why integrity matters so much. Integrity means your actions align with your words. When people consistently do what they say they'll do, trust develops naturally over time.
We've talked about kindness, emotional intelligence, communication, and integrity. Are there any other qualities that stand out to you?
Curiosity. I find curious people incredibly interesting because they continue growing throughout life. They're willing to learn, ask questions, challenge assumptions, and explore new ideas. Conversations with curious people rarely become boring because they're genuinely interested in the world around them.
I like that answer. Curiosity keeps relationships dynamic. People continue discovering new things about themselves and each other.
Exactly. Growth is important. I don't expect perfection from anyone, including myself. What matters is a willingness to learn and improve. Two people don't need to be perfect to build a strong relationship. They simply need mutual respect, shared effort, and a commitment to growing together.
That's a refreshing perspective because perfection often feels like an impossible standard.
It is impossible. Real relationships involve two imperfect people navigating life together. There will be mistakes, disagreements, and challenges. What determines success isn't the absence of difficulties, it's the ability to face those difficulties as a team.
Looking back on everything we've discussed tonight, a common theme seems to emerge. Confidence, ambition, communication, and attraction all appear connected to authenticity.
I think that's a wonderful observation. Authenticity allows people to build genuine connections. When you're comfortable being yourself, you attract people who appreciate the real person rather than an image. Those connections tend to be much stronger and more meaningful.
I've really enjoyed this conversation, Anna. It's been thoughtful, insightful, and surprisingly inspiring.
I've enjoyed it as well, Mike. Conversations like this remind me that meaningful connection often begins with simple curiosity and a willingness to listen. Those qualities may seem small, but they have the power to create lasting impressions.
And perhaps that's what makes someone truly attractive in the end. Not perfection, not status, and not constant attention, but character, kindness, emotional intelligence, and the ability to make another person feel valued and understood.